Hello everyone and welcome to Diplomatic Commentary. The spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has announced that Politburo member and Foreign Minister Wang Yi will attend the signing ceremony for the Convention on the Establishment of the International Mediation Institute, which will be held in Hong Kong on May 30. Spokesperson Wu Linghua stated that in 2022, China, together with nearly 20 like-minded countries, jointly launched the initiative to establish the International Mediation Institute. Through collective efforts, negotiations on the Convention on the Establishment of the International Mediation Institute have been completed, and it has been unanimously agreed that the headquarters of the International Mediation Institute will be located in Hong Kong, China. Nearly 60 countries from Asia, Africa, Latin America, and Europe, as well as around 20 international organizations, including the United Nations, will send high-level representatives to attend the signing ceremony on May 30. On the afternoon of the same day, an international mediation forum will be held, focusing on discussions about mediation of disputes between countries as well as mediation of international investment and commercial disputes. Mediation is one of the important dispute resolution methods stipulated in the United Nations Charter. It values harmony above all, fully respects the wishes of the parties involved, and has unique advantages such as being more flexible, more economical, more convenient, and easier to enforce. It also embodies the Eastern tradition of harmony and unity. The International Mediation Institute focuses on resolving disputes through mediation, and will become the world's first intergovernmental legal organization dedicated specifically to resolving international disputes through mediation. It serves as a mechanism for upholding the purposes and principles of the United Nations Charter. The International Mediation Institute addresses global concerns for peace, stability, and development, aligns with the trend of cooperation and mutual benefit, and brings together the strengths of major legal systems. This is conducive to promoting global governance in the rule of law toward a more just and equitable direction. Mao Ning emphasized that China welcomes more countries to continue supporting and participating in the establishment of the International Mediation Institute, working in synergy with existing international dispute resolution mechanisms to provide more options and approaches for the efficient and peaceful settlement of international disputes and to better uphold international fairness and justice. Wang Yi, as a national level leader, he personally came to Hong Kong to witness the signing ceremony of the Convention on the Establishment of the International Mediation Institute, which is a very high-level arrangement, and also demonstrates the central government's support and expectations for Hong Kong. First of all, Wang Yi himself is China's top official in charge of foreign affairs. Given the ever-changing international situation, he is indeed extremely busy, just mentioning the schedule announced by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs alone. On a typical day in Beijing, there are already several diplomatic events, and in addition, he has to accompany the president and the premier during meetings with foreign leaders. The fact that he still made time to come to Hong Kong amidst such a busy schedule shows just how much importance the central government places on the establishment of the Mediation Institute. Secondly, Hong Kong, as the only common law jurisdiction within China, has unique advantages, including legal practices that are familiar to foreign parties. At the same time, Hong Kong embodies the spirit of harmony emphasized in the United Nations Charter, combining both Eastern and Western approaches to mediation. This is precisely where Hong Kong excels, expanding and strengthening its new role as a city, while also contributing to the nation's development. As for foreign relations, this is exactly the case. This year's government work report specifically highlighted Hong Kong's unique advantage as a bridge connecting China with the world. The establishment of the International Mediation Institute is a reflection of China's sense of responsibility and commitment to the international community. It highlights that China's peaceful rise is not about Western-style hegemony or plundering, nor about seeking dominance through war, but rather about resolving disputes between nations through mediation and respecting different legal systems. Fourth, the membership of the International Mediation Institute will remain open and inclusive. The founding member countries include Uzbekistan, Laos, Cambodia, Serbia, Belarus, Sudan, Algeria, Djibouti, and others. Don't underestimate them. They are all developing countries, and as China rises, it will bring unprecedented opportunities to developing nations. Fifth, for Hong Kong, this can be considered a tremendous benefit. Well, by then, the signatory countries will all set up offices in Hong Kong, and lawyers, law firms, as well as various professionals related to international law will also move into Hong Kong in large numbers. In addition, other supporting personnel and investments will also flow in. These people and organizations will bring new development opportunities to Hong Kong. In addition, Trump, unwilling to be seen as having lost to China in the tariff war, is once again causing trouble for China. The Trump administration has imposed high port fees on ships owned and built by China, and has also levied new tariffs on Chinese-made cranes in an attempt to bring the shipbuilding industry back to the United States. However, these efforts are now facing strong opposition from industry insiders. According to a report by Nikkei Asia on May 20 on May 19 local time, a public hearing was held by the United States Trade Representative USTR, where only two topics were discussed. The first was the plan to impose a 100% tariff on Quay STS cranes, and the second was the plan to impose tariffs ranging from 20% to 100% on container chassis components, and other cargo handling equipment. A U.S. government panel composed of representatives from the USTR, Small Business Administration, Department of Transportation, Department of Commerce, Department of Agriculture, State Department, Treasury Department, Department of Homeland Security, and Department of Labor directly rejected industry representatives' objections to the two policies. On April 17, regulations were announced to impose port fees in phases on China-related vessels, as well as a proposal to impose fees on all foreign-made car carriers. Greenbar from the USDR, as the head of this government panel, insisted on steering the hearing's discussion back to the topic of raising crane tariffs. Gary Davis, president and CEO of the American Association of Port Authorities, AAPA, which represents 81 public ports in the United States, said, although the association supports the goal of localizing crane production, the U.S. Congress should first pass tax credit policies to stimulate domestic capacity. At the hearing, it was stated that the United States does not have any manufacturers producing STS cranes, and there have been none at least since the 1980s. Davis further explained in a written statement that outside of China, there are only 3 companies worldwide. The only companies that can provide internationally sourced STS cranes are Japan's Mitsui E-S and Europe's Konecranes and Leaper. However, these companies do not have sufficient production capacity to meet market demand. Charlie Jenkins, CEO of the Port of Houston, explained at the hearing that one port has already signed a procurement contract with China for 8 STS cranes, with delivery expected in the spring of 2026. Jenkins emphasized that the cranes were ordered in July 2024, which is a few months before the announcement of the new tariff policy. Jenkins pointed out that the suggested price is 100%, and the tariffs will be added on top of the existing 25% tariff already implemented in 2024. If the high tariffs imposed by Trump on China are reinstated after the 90-day grace period, the cranes ordered by the company will face tariffs as high as 270%, with the total amount exceeding $300 million. The warning is that this will deal a devastating blow to our ability to invest in terminals to meet future cargo demand, as well as to employment opportunities both in the region and across the country. The American Shipping Association, CSA, represents 21 companies that own, operate, and lease ocean liners and are American enterprises involved in container shipping. President Shi Metcalf said that the proposed China tariffs run counter to the goals of the ongoing U.S.-China trade negotiations. According to the U.S. and China, earlier this month, productive discussions were held in Geneva, and I believe that negotiating tariffs on goods and services and then trying to impose tariffs on the means of transportation actually used for shipping and transporting goods such as port fees and crane tariffs is counterproductive. In addition to attempting to impose tariffs on Chinese cranes, the Trump administration previously even came up with the harmful idea of charging fees on ships built in China that enter U.S. ports. On April 17, the USTR website published a federal notice. It declared that all ships built by China and owned by Chinese entities will be charged fees based on the quantity of goods they carry whenever they dock at U.S. ports. These related charges will be officially implemented 180 days later in 2 phases. According to the published fee details, the first phase will begin on October 14 of this year. The U.S. will charge a so-called maritime service fee of $50 per deadweight ton for any vessel operated by Chinese operators or owned by Chinese entities. This amount will increase by $30 per year over the next 3 years, reaching a rate of $140 per deadweight ton by 2028. For shipping service providers using vessels built in China, fees will be charged based on the vessel's net tonnage or the number of containers. This amount will also increase year by year, starting at $18 per net ton and rising to $33 by 2028. Another fee standard is that each container will be charged at a rate of $120. By 2028, this will increase to $250. There is a separate fee standard for non-U.S. built vessels carrying automobiles. The initial fee is $150 per car unit equivalent, Kuwait. 3 years later, starting from the second phase in 2028, the USTR will begin to restrict foreign-built vessels. For liquefied natural gas transportation operations, over the following 22 years, there will be a gradual requirement to increase the proportion of vessels flying the U.S. flag or operated by U.S. companies until this proportion reaches 15% by 2047. Previously, regarding the fees imposed on Chinese-built ships entering U.S. ports, the U.S. held 2 public hearings on March 24 and 26. More than 300 trade groups and other stakeholders provided testimony and expressed public opinions. Fierce clashes broke out between representatives of American industries and members of Congress, with many people sending letters and political circles issuing warnings to the US government. Is the US even capable of winning this? In this trade war, the US is now putting on a show of compromise. But the new proposal has not dispelled concerns within the industry, according to Bloomberg, especially given that Trump has already launched a global tariff war. Many people are warning that this fee plan, while undermining international shipping, is essentially another form of tariff. Not only would it add to the already staggering and bewildering array of tariffs imposed by Trump, but it would also make the burden even heavier. Will this further escalate tensions between China and the US? The trade conflict between these two major world economies is already tense. The conclusion is that whether it's tariffs on cranes or fees targeting Chinese container ships, the result is that US companies will face high operating costs, increased service fees, and as these social costs are passed on, competitiveness will inevitably decline as well.